All right. Anyway, so we record these sessions, and we've got a unique opportunity where we've got three projects, not just the Honors College, but the Wellness Clinic and the indoor practice facility that are going up simultaneously. And the Southeast Chiller plant expansion was completed previously, so we're not going to be really talking about that today. But the previous version, the first orientation or introduction to the projects did talk about that project. So what we've decided to do is not only you guys get to tour the Honors College building, but also engineering, architecture, and Honors College students can, the same week that you're touring, on Tuesdays and Fridays, they're going to be able to tour all three of these projects. So you're welcome to come on out or tell your friends, mechanical, civil engineering friends, architecture friends, tell them to come on out, and we'll give them a tour. It's kind of fun. So we do actually twice a semester, do that, and then 4 of these sessions over the semester. So we've done, how are the buildings different? Why did we use 3 different foundation systems? And what is a foundation system? Why did we use 3 different mechanical systems, air conditioning systems for these different buildings? How is it that they really are different from a lead standpoint? So we're going to do a session on how are the 3 projects attaching lead this year, or sustainability, which is a big push for the Honors College this year. Another way you can look at it, and I'll move these over here. Move Scott's face over there. There we go. You can connect on Bulls Connect. You can join our group. You'll get additional information, or you can just Google USF AEC Experience. And you can go back, look at the previous sessions, look at the, you'll have a link to actually see.
Is that all of the previous sessions, Steve?
That's all of the previous sessions. We also have,
Don't do that.
we also have kind of a Google Maps for construction sites, where you can actually walk through the construction site almost on a weekly basis. And then you can turn the clock back and see, okay, what was this like a month ago? What was this like 2 months ago, 6 months ago? Pretty much in the same walk, and then see how the construction actually changes over time as different systems are going in. So that's I think really cool. Let me ask you one thing here. So of the different, and we're not going to do this online, but just raise your hands. Of the different types of ways to connect to the project. So we've got a webcam that's looking at the project all the time. We'll actually see a version of that. The viewing platform that's right outside the Honors College, or kind of a
That's some small.
Yeah. Area. And kind of over at the wellness clinic, they just peeled back the fence a little bit. Or the virtual site tours, the 360-degree or the Google Walks for construction. These experiences, the construction site tours, or other ways. So raise your hand. So a webcam. Are you most excited about that? One person.
One.
Well, one. That's good. The viewing platform, like on a weekly basis. All right. These sessions. So you don't know what these sessions are about yet. So I understand you're not raising your hand there. That makes sense. Construction site tours. Everybody loves to go to your construction sites. Yeah, what it is. All right. Any other ways you'd like to watch the projects or connect with the projects? Any other ideas out there? Yeah.
I'm curious, with the webcam, are you going to do a time lapse at the end to show like quickly the progression from start to finish?
Hold that thought.
Okay.
Hold that thought. Hold that thought. All right. Yes.
Within the engineering department, is there any opportunities for the engineering students?
Yes. So, well, okay. So what kind of opportunities would you be talking about?
Well, I'm just curious as to any opportunities to engage with the construction.
Okay.
With a more technical point of view.
Okay. So some of these sessions, you'll actually go back, and we get pretty darn technical, I think. Wouldn't you say, Itsuko?
Yeah, I have the FM sessions on the technique.
Yeah, so these sessions, we really share a lot of deep information about the mechanical systems, about the structural systems, about the electrical systems. And kind of really get into some deep things. So you may want to just go back and look at some of the other sessions and look at it. And then when you're out there on the construction site, ask questions. I will say we've all also placed, I think this summer we had 16 different interns that we placed for summer jobs. I know Melcy from the previous honors college class worked at the wellness clinic this year
We had an engineering student grant as well as an intern on our project.
as an intern. I know there's a bunch of them really worked around the Tampa Bay area.
And some of the coursework, depending on what we're doing and what your professors may or may not be interested in doing. We involved Dr. Gray
Yep,
in his class during the deep foundations. They actually did some grant work.
Yeah.
So they were doing research for a DOT grant. They actually used our site and some of our actual production deep casings to do their study. So again, that was a special case because of what we were doing on site and with his grant and how the timing worked out. But yeah, there's definitely opportunities. I think that's why Steve's put this whole thing together.
yeah, it is fun and of course. Yeah, and it is interesting that this really is, I think it's going to continue on because the team that is going to be doing the stadium has proposed to do similar activities like we're doing here with the stadium. So I think we've started something that may just continue. So it's kind of cool, kind of fun.
Engineering student, but
Yes, the engineering students love it. The architecture students do too. All right. So we're going to today is going to be a lot more informal than most of our other sessions. Our other sessions, unfortunately, it's been more lecture than it has been interactive. This is intended to be more interactive. So today in the call, we've got Marcel should be joining us, hopefully in person. He is now the president of Fleischman Garcia Maslowski. They're actually the firm that is one of the lead firm, the architecture of record that's doing the Honors College. We have Scott Lee and Ed Kwong, who you'll see, there's Ed, or no, there's Scott waving his hand, and then Ed is in the background. They're up in New York. They're with Morphosis Architects. We've got Evan, who is the senior superintendent. You'll meet him next week when we go walk around the site. And Carrie Parker, I think, is joining us. Let's see if I can get this to half screen. See if we've got Carrie Parker. Oh, there's Marcel.
Hey, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can
Yeah,
hear you.
sorry, I had a meeting finishing late, so I'll just join online.
I get it. All right. Carrie Parker may be there with Suminga.
She's running just a few minutes late, but she should be hopping on.
All right. Okay, that sounds good. And then we have Britton Pollitt. So Carrie is the architect for the Wellness Center. Britton is the project manager for the Wellness Center. Then we've got Chris DeVolder on the screen over there.
Hi, Steve. Hi, everybody.
He's the architect for the Wellness Center, and I just got off another meeting with him a few minutes ago. That was good. And Randy Simmons is running late. He was in another long meeting. And I have to say a little bit of condolences to Evan and congratulations to Randy, because they announced the team that's going to be building that they're negotiating with for the on-campus stadium. And Barton Mallow and Populous will be, and Randy Simmons is on that team. Unfortunately, Beck, yep. Beck and Mortensen came in bridesmaids, but they were, was not an easy decision from what I
I
understand.
appreciate the opportunity.
It was,
There'll be plenty more work here, Steve. We'll do all of it for you.
I
It
know.
doesn't have to be stadium.
I know. Well, we've got to spread it around,
That's
you know.
right.
You can't give it everything to you.
Yeah, they'll do a good job. They'll do fine.
All right. So that being said, we've got some great individuals here, and I asked them to each kind of think back, give maybe about 3 or 4 minutes each themselves, talk about what, from their perspective, you know, they've worked on a lot of different projects. The architects have worked on a lot of different projects. What was it that surprised you about the particular project you're working on here at USF? What stuck out in your mind? What surprised you? What was most interesting to you? Because we've had it, they're each different projects. So I'm gonna start at the top of the list and jump over here to Marcel and ask Marcel just to, okay, come here. There we go.
You said the question was what excited us the most?
Yeah, what project, what's most unique about the project from your perspective, having worked on a whole bunch of different projects? What is exciting to you? What's perplexed you? What's been most challenging? Just take 3 or 4 minutes just to kind of go through that.
Sure. Well, I think first, I mean, it's a very exciting project, the USF Honors College, especially for me personally, since I went to USF School of Architecture. The school I went to is right in front of the building, so it was almost personal in that sense. But also working with Scott and Ed has been a great experience. But of course, the Honors College, the excitement of the Honors College, it has been great, you know, through all the engagement. So one thing that we did during the design phase is meeting with Honors College, you know, continuously learning from not just administration, but, you know, even the teachers and professors, the students, everybody really. So, there's a bit of an echo when I talk. Is it just me?
Yeah, that's okay. I've just turned up the volume a little bit on you.
Okay. So I think those are really the most exciting part for me. Is really the engagement with everybody. Challenges. Of course, we had some interesting challenges on this project. You know, it has a pretty complex facade system, a pretty complex atrium too, which I think we're going to share some photos, right? We also have a complex atrium system with smoke evacuation system. It's definitely the most complex I've worked on out of all the projects. So super exciting to do that, and at the same time learn from it. It was a continuous learning experience on that side. But it's a really exciting project because it really engages, you know, not just the Honors College, but everybody on campus. And so I think, I mean, those are the most, and the facade came out also. That was pretty exciting to see the facade come out the way we wanted. Scott and Ed will talk more about that, but, you know, we were looking at a little sample originally that changes color, and so we're kind of imagining what it would look like, you know, when the entire facade would be covered with that, and when we saw the final results coming out the way we imagined, it was pretty exciting. So Scott and Ed can add a lot more to that.
All right, Scott, jumping over to you from a different aspect. You've worked on a lot of world-renowned architecture.
Yeah.
Morphosis is an internationally renowned architectural firm. What's excited you about this project? What's interesting? What has turned out different than you thought?
Yeah, and thanks, Steve. Thanks for having us to do this. It's really nice to be here again, and I'm glad, Evan, that you're there, because one of the first things I'll start up with is that you know, as architects, designers, we're always beginning sort of the creative process. We're meeting with students, faculty, administrators. And at the end of the day, it comes down to really kind of building the thing, right? It's very sort of nuts and bolts. So I think it's a huge opportunity, and I'm glad that there's already questions about students trying to see if there's opportunities to engage as deeply as possible, because you don't get that opportunity to be at a construction site every day, you know? And I would say as an architect, you know, one of the big things that I encourage anybody and everybody is, if you ever have the opportunity to see with your own eyes how things come together, which is it's actually quite rare these days because there's so much technology to support that. It's really kind of an invaluable lesson, right? So I'd say that's kind of one of the exciting things about the project that I can really kind of encourage people to take. There's so many exciting things about the project. The other one is, a building never stands on its own. We're never sort of building on a vacuum. And for you guys, for this opportunity, it's kind of it's about engaging the campus. And your campus built, you know, the campus started around the 1950s, 1956 or so. So it's a relatively new campus. So it's really great to be adding to the campus through different kinds of space needs and be able to kind of create something that's going to be critical for many years to come. And in fact, hopefully encourage other things to be built around it, which is what's already happening with the wellness center and that sort of thing. So what really excites me about that is to see how the building engages the campus wide, the community, the more sort of communal spaces like the cafe, I think is really extremely important. That amphitheater, I think how it's used, it's extremely important. Of course, that ground floor atrium space and the lecture space as places where kind of community comes in, both honors college folks as well as visitors, lecturers, and other from above, and kind of engage the building. And that's what makes the campus, right? Because ultimately, the campus is about participation, it's about engagement, it's about pedagogy, and to be able to do that, you need to have open communal type of spaces. So that really, really excites me. Is that, I don't know, Steve, does that cook it for you, or do you want challenges too? Because there are a lot of challenges too.
No, Scott, we've had enough. We've heard enough.
You've
Thank
had
you.
enough. You got it. All right.
Keep talking about the superintendent if you want.
Well, maybe we'll get to
Or
that.
that.
Maybe we'll get to that in the second half. All right. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. How about Ed?
Yeah, thanks, Steve, thanks, Steve, for inviting me to participate in this discussion. I think for me, the most exciting part for the project is really to participate in the reshaping of the campus for USF. Like, to me, as an architect, always like it takes a long time to have something to come into realization. For example, like for this project, we spent 2 years in design. And then 3 years in construction. Like, that's 5 years of everyone's time to contribute to this great project. And what really surprised me, on this project is really, just like putting something that we in our mind conceptually into existence. For example, the facade that Marcel mentioned, the color shift. I think that really it has a really striking appearance, and it looked totally different from a sample to the real building. I think to me, like that's a really memorable aspect of like building something real in that scale. And then the other item that maybe we will show later is a photo of the atrium, like the rendering of a concept. And now we are so excited to bring this into reality in the coming weeks, and all the credit given to the construction team, Evan and his team. And to me, like these are the two aspects is like really exciting about. Steve, I'm gonna pass it back to you.
All right. Well, that is cool. How about Evan?
Okay, guys. Exciting. So I think one of the things that we're all in this to do is to do things and leave things behind we'll be proud of, right? And for me, as an architectural buff, not an architect, but an architectural buff, working on projects that are great architecture and leaving those behind for my family to appreciate is very exciting. And having the chance to do that and participate in one of those is a big deal because that's not every project, right? More so because it's part of USF. I did not attend USF, or at least not for my major degree, but I have family that did. I have family with season football tickets. My mother's an alum. I grew up very close to here. So being able to leave something behind at USF, that's a part of what I consider my community. You know, even though I'm not an alum of USF, I certainly consider that one of my universities that I'm a part of. That's very exciting to me to be able to be a part of that. Some of the surprises, things that have come up during the project, you know, I always, Steve's heard me say it before, but one of my favorite philosophers is Mike Tyson. And he said that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. I love that quote. So we are used to having so much more control in our industry of our supply chain. And we don't have that this year. We didn't have it last year. Probably won't have it next year. So things that we're used to knowing this is going to come. Not only is it not going to come when you need it, they can't even tell you when it's going to come because they can't get parts or they can't get truckers or there's some ridiculous shortage of something so minute that we have a hard time anticipating that stuff. I'm sure you guys have all experienced it. So, you know, that's something that we've all had to accommodate, kind of work around. You plan and replan, and that's, you know, not uncommon, but very different at this point in history right now. And something that I've learned working with the design of this project is we don't have, we have very specific designs, and Ed and I have had a lot of discussions about the important datum and all these different intricate details that really have to look a certain way. And it may seem, you know, minutia, but they all come together to make this grand scheme that these guys have come up with. And it's changed the way we've had to approach how we construct a lot of things because we lose tolerance. Everything has to align perfectly. Everything has to hit a certain datum that normally we have a little more tolerance in how we build. So we've had to readapt and just change our approach. And, you know, that's what I wanted to get to is that all of us work together as a team, the builders, the designers, and the owners, and our subcontractors. And we all want the best outcomes. That's what we're all after. And what we all have to realize is that sometimes the best avenue to achieve those outcomes is not what was planned, and it's not what was expected. So that's why I'm very grateful for the team we've been working with, because I think we've all shown a great deal of flexibility and creativity, and frankly, a lot of cooperation and collaboration to really achieve what the outcomes are desired to be. Sometimes that's adapting or compromising here or there, but everybody's been really working well together, I think, to achieve what we want for USF and for the building. And that's really where I'll start. Hopefully we have some great questions. We do appreciate you guys coming out and touring and asking questions. It's not always going to be me on the tours, maybe rarely. But I know my whole team, it does pump us up a little bit to see people that are engaged and are excited to be there. I know most of you probably know who Dr. Kinshef is. And the level of excitement she brings when she's on site is amazing. You know, it lights us up to see that people do care. So encourage you guys to come, ask questions, and have fun.
So I'm going to play a little video that Evan's team put together, just as a part of their monthly fly around, just to look and see what's going on. But as I do this, think of some questions you might have for the Honors College team.
I'm gonna talk to Steven about getting like a little backer soundtrack next time. Some music could make the difference. Kenny Loggins or something.
But this is one of the things that is neat about this video is you can start to see how, one of the interesting things I found as this was coming together is just the
Redacted.
fact that is, if you're coming around this corner, look over to the wellness, there, the curvature of both buildings together really is it's a neat effect. It's a neat serendipity that I didn't expect previously. And then here's the indoor practice facility that Randy is building.
We have no curves in ours whatsoever.
Yes, it's all straight.
Crown of the field.
We tried to put curves in and they said no.
We used up all the curves. We used up all the curves.
I want to know where the center point of campus is that makes those two radiuses. I think that would be an interesting test to figure out what exactly
Exactly
where
that
that is.
132-foot radius. Well, actually, there's several. It's a compound radius.
Yeah.
Be careful what you wish for, right?
That's right. Okay.
And there's your wonderful honors or
Find out.
architecture building, Marcel. Actually, it looks kind of good from here.
It does from the sky, yeah.
Needs a makeover.
Fly faster, fly faster. I'm feeling pretty good about the architecture on the IPF at this point, comparing it to the architecture building. Who was in the architecture building originally? It wasn't architectural. Is it?
HMS was Human Something Services.
Site department?
Could have been psych.
Yeah, I think that's where my wife went.
Was it flooding back then too?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
On a hill.
Underground. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. This is the only place in town you can have a basement.
But it's still ill advised.
Yeah, it's not a good idea, but you can have one.
all right. So what questions do you guys have about the Honors College building Go ahead.
Even now I noticed that there was like rain droplets in the video. So I've always wondered how people construct buildings with, you know, rain and any other type of weather. Like, how do you make sure that the materials don't get ruined or?
Well, first we get wet when it's raining. But essentially, any materials that are susceptible to damage from the water, whether that's moldable material, stuff like that, we will not bring in until the building's dried in. So once we get that envelope protecting it from the rain, then we can bring that material in. Other materials you won't bring in until the air conditioning is actually on. So that definitely does factor in. It's always a critical part of any of our schedules is dry in when the building is dry.
Yeah.
You know, and that's really how we handle that.
That's a huge milestone in
It
any
is.
project is what's called the dry-in.
Yep.
point. When the building is dried in and you can do stuff inside without it getting wet.
The stuff we can't do in the rain that always happens is concrete. Whenever we're pouring concrete, it rains.
Impact varies based off of phase of construction.
Yep.
Well, we live in a climate that is somewhere in the neighborhood of 55 to 60 inches of rain annually. So it's a fact of life.
Yep.
Yep.
You know, if we could have snow, we could have 4 months of snow. Fortunately, we don't have that.
You don't
Yeah,
have that.
and we don't
Pick
have
your-
to have
pick your
this rain.
poison.
We don't have to have heaters on. our
That's
job.
right. You pick your poison.
Other places they do. Remember, I was visiting a job, was it in North Carolina? They had heaters.
Yes.
Yeah.
What are those?
Yes.
Why do you have that?
Wanna look through
Well, air conditioning.
environment.
That's right. What are you guys doing?
Somebody else.
I know you
mentioned that there were design ideas about raising up the like street entrance and then having you go in on the second floor so that then you could have the dumpsters down in the front still. And you mentioned that they're still gonna be in the front, but I'm curious, I couldn't really tell how you're gonna like make it more seamless with the dumpsters still in the front, like street side of the building.
So, would you like to take that one?
I can help with that one. I can help you with that one too.
All right.
Go on. Barry, if you want to go first.
Yeah, I would say, generally, when we started the project, and I'm gonna take the question and kind of expand it a little bit, there were multiple sites for the building. And the current location was actually one of several. So when we were looking at the site initially, we had to sort of kind of decide which one is the most sort of favorable. It was kind of North Campus, closer to some kind of residences, or this one that's closer to Central Campus. So there was kind of a very long pros and cons, and one of them was serviceability, the things that happens every day, which is sort of a little bit of what you're kind of bringing up, And after kind of like a long analysis of it, because every project begins at that, what I call kind of pre-concept or pre-schematic, where you have to make decisions about siting. We thought that the best area to create the best sort of logical community to be in the heart of the campus is at its current location. So when you look at the building, and I think you're kind of already identifying a little bit, the building has different kinds of sidedness. It's got different things happening on north, east, west, and south, And for a lot of that, when we're kind of thinking about how the building, going back to the how the building engages the campus, a lot of the programming and where you put things were associated with things that were either happening towards, let's say, the Sesam's Mall side is where we have the big amphitheater, because we know there's quite a bit of circulation. We're also trying to create a little bit more intensity between the architecture school and this school to kind of really create that Sesam's Mall Plaza, which was part of the broader kind of master plan idea. We put the cafe to the south because then you're sort of across the business school, and then we're trying to create a campus atmosphere to the south that's bookended by the cafe of the Honors College. The serviceability side, which is always really tricky, and I think you're kind of catching on something that's quite a challenge when you're trying to create really connected, vibrant ground spaces, but then at the same time, you have to get this stuff out of the building, right? The garbage and everyday services, you're bringing things in. We sort of allocated that sidedness towards what's now Judy Genschap Drive there, which is to the east side of the building. And then the opposite side of that, which is the west side, we put that sort of curvature because, again, through that curvature, we're trying to hold an exterior type of space. We're trying to create what we feel is a small kind of living public space through that curvature. So that form is going to help define that space a little bit. So we sort of did a drone kind of move around the thing, but I think if there's one takeaway from that drone is that you have to be very strategic in terms of what happens at which side, sort of how does it engage to the existing stuff, and ultimately, because we're working on a college campus, how does it augment life in these different sides in a way that actually is more conducive to either people coming together or people looking at things. It's the thing that we always talk about. It's a little bit of the learning on display, allows so transparency, so visibility. I think the architecture school is a classic example of that. You don't want to be building things, or you want to feel like you're connected to the outside and that people can kind of look at and see what's happening inside the school, which unfortunately the architecture school doesn't have so much. But the ground floor of the Honors College was purposely put together where we have a lot of glass on the ground floor, right? We want visibility, we want transparency, we want porosity, because we want people to kind of come in and out. So it's a really good question, but I'll take that question and sort of create the macro, which is really the strategy of where you locate buildings relative to a campus and how each elevation has its own role to play in the kind of broader idea of how the building sits and contributes.
I think to add to that, right, is the typical building has a front and a back, right? And in this case, to Scott's point, we don't have a back. Every side is a front. And so I think that the strategy there is that we do have a service drive on the east side, but the back of the building, the skin comes down and screens, what the back access, essentially where you have the trash, for the cafe and for the building. And so it was really trying to screen that. Then we have the generators and transformers that we also had to screen. We had to come up with a screening, essentially strategy just to help with those elements that have to be there. Stuff that nobody wants to think about, but we had to come up with a strategy to screen those elements and still make it workable, so that the rest of the building is transparent and connect to the rest of the campus, as Scott mentioned.
So they kind of took the Disney World approach. If you're walking around Disney World, all of this stuff happens, but it's always, you don't see it. So we're trying to get Evan to buy some plants that are already grown and getting really large, but he's resisting these. We're trying to get him in the ground, but he's just, but there are plans to have a growing screen that'll hide all that kind of stuff and kind of create the Disney World, nothing to look at here.
Yeah.
But it's
like Steve said, though, they're all over campus now.
Yeah.
Maybe you notice some more than others, but ideally they're giving you something better to look at. Take your focus away from those kind of utilitarian pieces.
Good. Any other questions for the Honors College team? Oh, our mechanical engineer over there.
How much of like the design process is kind of like a psychology game?
I don't know. I think Scott just took us through a whole psychology.
I mean, like during the design process, how much of it is considering like interaction with people, and kind of planning stuff in a certain way that people day to day won't notice, but you designed it in that specific way?
Oh my Lord, a lot. I've had a lot of conversations. And that's frankly true to me as the layman, that you won't notice. You just feel a certain way. It feels right. It looks right, but you don't know why it looks right. But Ed puts a lot of thought into why it looks right. So I think quite a bit, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm sure you guys think quite a bit about being very deliberate about the design to make it feel a certain way, right?
Yeah, definitely through a lot of different elements that we put a lot of thought into. For example, lighting, day lighting, acoustic. I think a lot of things are not tangible, but we actually put that into consideration. So as Evan said, as you walk in, you don't understand why you actually feel comfortable in that space. But at the back, on our end, we actually have our consultant also work on this project, giving us advice on all these elements. So in terms of like well-being, for example, I'm going to draw the example of the atrium. We actually, instead of like looking out of the facade, looking out to the window, we actually also have an inward looking atrium that we bring in lateral lighting from the top. So a lot of like these are thought out to be very comfortable when you walk in, and psychologically you're in a very quiet place with a lot of acoustic material. Those are the things that I said is intangible, but you can feel it.
This question, Steve, I can probably spend an hour or two or three talking about it.
I knew you could.
But because it's, I mean, the question, if I heard it right, is actually the entire basis of the building. It's the concept of the building. And I think without going through our discussion, it's always really interesting to try to create communal, social, open spaces that is geared to, let's say, anyone, but at the same time creating the sense of intimacy and privacy and the ability to create that is both kind of big, operates level of the entire honors college, and then having also spaces that really help somebody kind of walk around and quickly want to chat with somebody, whether it's with you, it's another student or a professor for like 5 minutes, you know? So I think the question is best if I had like a image of the section of the building, because I think the section of the building tries to do that, probably shows that the most, which is creating this kind of entry area or an entry zone that is quite grand. You know, you kind of come in, again, it's porous from every side. Then there's sort of a hone in, a focus area of this atrium, but aligned in the atrium is a series of layers of smaller intimate spaces. And they're both because of the sizes of the huddle rooms, and a lot of them actually face the interior side of the atrium, but they're smaller. But then behind corridors, behind also another set of like smaller classroom type spaces or meeting spaces or advisor rooms, meeting areas, little nooks. To kind of work succinctly in answering the question, it requires kind of like a layered response. You have to play with scales, as Ed is alluding to. You can actually create a lot of sensibility of the type of meeting spaces that should happen through acoustical treatment of the spaces too. You know, so smaller rooms, if you make them very acoustical versus smaller rooms that is a little bit more vibrant, then you have a different kind of thing. So there's kind of like a lot of tools that allude to it. But the interesting and intriguing question is really probably one of the most underlying fundamental concepts for this entire building, which is really trying to work in two scales of bringing the big community together, but at the same time creating some level of like small, Steve, I'll allude to what you've always referred to, your 5-minute spaces, which is so key, right, to when you're kind of working through people.
Yep. Well, I'm going to keep us going because we could obviously spend a whole hour on the Honors College. So I'm going to bump over here to Carrie. Thank you for joining us. Unpin you guys and pin Carrie here and say, Carrie, so you're the architect on the wellness building. What's been most interesting to you about this project? What's been the biggest surprise, challenge, whatever? But 3 minutes or so.
All right. So yes, I'm a licensed architect and the project manager on the project, and it has been so rewarding to work with such a diverse team to bring the project to fruition. You know, not just architects, but interior designers, lighting designers, medical planners, data analysts who all worked on the design process to, and, you know, talking with practitioners and students about their needs and expectations in terms of healthcare. So, and I'm typically more of a higher education, educational environments architect and designer. And so working on what we called like a healthcare light project was a learning experience for me, and definitely opened my eyes to a lot of unique design challenges that are you wouldn't encounter unless it's a healthcare environment. So that was very unique for me. And a challenge was definitely, you know, we went through a similar site selection process as honors and evaluating different sites. And during the time that we were waiting to hear back on selection of or agreement with our recommendation of which site to proceed with, we went into COVID. And so we did the entire design process remote. I think except for 1 or 2 meetings. And so that was also a completely new learning curve as we all experienced. But it was just the success of this project is such a testament to everyone working on it, you know, with Bar and Bar, with USF facilities, as well as on the user side. So it's been really rewarding to see it come to fruition. And, you know, after having done the renderings and work with the team on, you know, creating the visuals of it and now actually walking through it, and I have this completely unique perspective that another architect mentioned of being out on site, and I know the drawings in and out, and it's like, oh, I know exactly where this is. Like I know this pipe, I know, and you know, even when there's no walls in place, earlier this year, I was still able to orient myself and feel like I could walk through the building. So there's really no experience like being able to watch something that was, you know, a figment of your imagination not too long ago come to fruition and something that you create and is now leaving this lasting legacy with USF, as someone else said.
How about you, Britton?
Follow up. As far as rewarding parts of the project, Evan hit on it, which is a common one for me. That when you're building higher education or healthcare projects, it's really rewarding to know that, you know, these spaces are either being used to, you know, help people. Doctors are using those spaces to heal, or in the case of higher education, students come there to learn, grow, and develop. And you know, this project is kind of a hybrid of both of those. So it is rewarding to, you know, drive around campus in 10 years, and you know, I had a hand in that, and students go into the building to you know, get their shots or appointments or whatever, and then you know, still being used as that. So that's rewarding as a constructor to come back to. And the other one for this particular project is that it's a design build project. So, you know, I was able to be there at the meetings with Carrie before COVID, when, you know, the project was, you know, there's a bunch of sticky notes on easels about, you know, what the student government would like out of the project and what student health services would like out of the project. And have Carrie's team go through and, you know, combine all that information and come up with a final design that kind of meets all those expectations. So not always get able to be involved with that. You know, sometimes we're involved after everything's already done and, you know, it's, hey, Britton, go build it. So it was fun to be part of the design process with that. Carrie hit on it, but it was really cool to see how I think Cannon's team took the forecasted student population from like maybe 10 years out, and said, all right, we're gonna need this many rooms with your current cases, and you know, here's how the building's gonna flow and meet that future demand. So that was cool, very exciting, and rewarding for me to be able to kind of go through that. Challenges with the project. Again, Evan, I think you read my speech here.
Doing this.
Yeah, so COVID was tough. I mean, you guys, I'm sure, with the protocols and everything has been tough. Material has been an adjustment, and from the start of this project to the end, we kind of went through that kind of crux, you know, when we were underway. So that kind of impacted us and had us, that shift in mindset had to take place during the project, whereas projects that are starting now, you know, you kind of go into it with that in mind. So that's been difficult. We worked through it. You know, you lean on a lot of the relationships you have with vendors, with equipment manufacturers in the industry, people within your company that have those relationships, and try to pull all the levers you can to get the stuff here. So that was challenging. That parking lot is very busy.
Yeah.
You guys got an even tighter site than us. But getting
Yeah, but
deliveries.
they don't have deliveries to a food service thing on
Yeah.
a daily basis.
Yeah,
So I get
one-
emails on a weekly basis.
Graduations, Phil was texting me going.
Oh, by the
"Man,
way,
you
there's
guys
a
don't have
there's a
to go."
concert.
Yeah,
There's
we
a
got a
concert.
concert tonight.
Tonight.
At one point during construction, the Cisco food truck deliveries were driving through our site. And they'd be waiting at the gate at 5 a.m. And say, hey, sorry, we're late today, to open things up for you, so you come through. Just kind of the way logistics worked out with the building, so, definitely an interesting site, but, that's kind of the fun part about it, that we got this building right in the middle of campus and able title and.
So that's a good point, is we all recognize, we have our job site, this is our realm, right? But we're within USF's realm, and campus life continues. You guys have to function as a university. We have to kind of disappear into that and make sure you guys can continue to function. So that's always a little bit of an added complexity.
Yeah.
And
say one of
Steve,
the-
are you going to the concert then?
I am not going to the
Not
concert
this
tonight,
one.
not
Okay.
this one,
Yeah.
no.
I saw the headliners. I figured you'd be there.
No. Just glad I wasn't in the last one. I would say probably one of the most interesting surprises to me on this project actually happened during the selection process. And going back to psychology, but it's when the architects put their business hat on. And this was really the thing that clinched it for the Bar and Canon team, is that we had a short list. We were interviewing, I think, 5 or 6 different architectural firms, and they had all done walk-in clinics. And pretty much, a walk-in clinic is a walk-in clinic. You may have X-ray, you may have some other stuff, but a walk-in clinic, a clinic is a clinic. But the Canon team came out and they said, doctors love to work 7 to 3. They love to get in early. They love to go home, and they love to work 4 days a week so that they can play golf 1 day a week. He said that the challenge is that students wake up about 10 o'clock. And so you've got about 3 hours there that you're paying for a doctor to be there, but they're not seeing very many patients. So if we can somehow adjust your doctors to work from 10 to 7 instead of 7 to 3, we can actually build less exam rooms because you're not trying to squeeze. You've got your 7 to 10, and you've got your 3 to 6, but then you're trying to squeeze everybody in between 10 and 3. And that you physically can't do that. So if we can get everybody to work on the schedule that your clientele operates on, we can actually build a smaller building for you. And that was, as Carrie was saying, that's the data.
Analytics.
Thank you. Yeah, the data analytics part of where, when we're planning a building, we can actually dig in and it's going through records of years of appointment records and saying, okay, what are the common threads and what are the common things that we're seeing here that can influence a design. It was really an interesting process. And then having the architects work with the staff to kind of educate the staff and the doctors to say, why did you think about this? And here we are as architects teaching doctors how to practice, but we find ourselves as architects, as contractors, kind of doing that a lot of times, is influencing the behaviors of people, either intentionally or unintentionally, through our actions and our decisions.
I'll add to that too, real quick. not just in clinics, but educators, anyone that has an existing facility and they're just barely trying to make things work, and they have a way of doing things that is influenced by a subpar environment. And so even in the visioning process, very early on, it's like, big picture, what do you want? And so oftentimes all they know is this very narrow window of their own experience. And so we have to come in with this depth of experience and knowledge of how you can do it better. So we very frequently educate clients.
It's like a paradigm explosion.
Yes.
All right. Anybody else there? Any questions for the wellness team?
I think somebody mentioned earlier how it was hard to balance, like with the wellness center, having privacy for the patients while also being open to the community. So how did you deal with that challenge when designing it?
Carrie, did you hear that?
Mostly balancing input between community and patients.
Not so much input, but how do you balance privacy and patient privacy and HIPAA requirements and still make it feel like it's welcoming to the community and you're welcome here?
It's definitely all about that patient experience. As you come into the building, you check in and you're led to that room and for your appointment. And so how can we reduce stress and anxiety as you're going into that appointment? We've got this beautiful wellness garden and in-ground fountain facing honors actually as you walk in. We have a lot of calming colors and materials that help calm you down a little bit. As you're waiting, you have these views to the garden and to the rest of campus. And then, all of the patient exam rooms are windowless because of that privacy concern. All of the partitions, the walls between the exam rooms go all the way up above the ceiling. There's a lot of insulation. We're cutting out on that sound bleed. But then, we also think about the practitioners and what does a healthy work environment look like for them. So all of their offices are on glass. So we're balancing those needs and understanding who needs what. It's funny, really quick story. When we were initially designing the massing of the building, and we had these really evocative curves in the building, which I like to say would give Britain a heart attack to try to build and fit in the budget. Yeah. But it was really important to both health services as well as the President Corral at the time that we did introduce a curve into the building to soften it up and make it feel more inviting. So it feels like this, hug coming out to reach you and invite you in.
Carrie's point with that, talking about, something on paper and then reality, when you are kind of walking on the site, you do kind of get that feeling.
Mm-hmm. It does reach out to the
From
street.
Stetson's Mall, like coming down into kind of that plaza area in front of the building, kind of get that feeling.
Any other questions to the wellness team? Yes, sir.
You can go, I've asked plenty.
My question, I guess, it was, at one of the earlier sessions mentioned like a multi-purpose room in the wellness center. Is that still part of the plan?
Yes. So she asked about the multi-purpose room. Is that still part of the plan? Yes, it is. It is being built as designed. So it's not a huge multi-purpose room, but it's a good sized multi-purpose room that'll hold about 50 people. Yeah. Yes, sir.
So as an architect, what's kind of like the interaction with an engineer, and how do they play a role in the design process?
So our engineering team are all third-party consultants. We do actually have internal MEP engineers as well, but we used a team that has experience in Tampa and with USF as well. And we don't consider them, any different from the rest of, the architecture team. They are in the trenches with us. They are talking to users and practitioners about the needs for, airflow in terms of oh shoot,
Airflow and air quietness and.
well, I was
physical
gonna say,
separation.
cleanliness of the air quality, and especially in COVID, that became very important. So the whole urgent care suite is 100% exhausted. There's no recirculated air. And then they also engage a lot more heavily with the USF facilities team as the people who will be maintaining the project, for years to come, and making sure that it is maintainable and meet certain standards. So, and they're part of the design process right there with us, and it's a push and pull, whether it's structure or mechanical or electrical and lighting. And we did a full exam room cardboard mock-up and walked through it with the users to make sure that everything was in a spot that made sense for the procedures during in the room, which includes how all of the equipment integrates with electrical and mechanical systems as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, it gets down to the electrical engineer was right there with the architect and with the clients talking about, okay, where do you need power so that you don't have cords draping all over the place, and you've got the switches and you've got the power where you need it in the exam room. Because again, and it depends on the type of healthcare, but I mean, dentists are the best or the worst at that, because they have to do a certain move probably 100 different times a day. And if they can reduce that movement even by a couple feet, that makes a huge difference in their ability.
Plays golf way better on Fridays.
Yeah. But we've done studies like that in nursing homes where okay, if we put the nursing station in this location as opposed to this location, the nurse or the janitor's office or janitor's room, the janitor has to walk 100 less steps a day, which means they can do their job quicker and they're happier when they're doing it. All right, I want to cut it short. Randy, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. And see if I can get to this video. And not to show you up here, Evan. All right, so yeah, we have done time lapses. We did a time lapse on the downtown building when we built that building also, and it really is a lot of fun to watch that because it shows you, again, it shows you how the building goes together. And yeah, we sometimes paint the building before we put the roof on. So Chris, and I'll say this to Chris, he's got a challenge because this project started when we had a different athletic director and a different president and a different football coach. And
I was 7 years old.
pretty much, we had a different site. We had a little bit different program. We were going to build the football operations building and the practice facility at the same time. And we've actually gone through, I think, is it 5 different project architects on this, Chris?
We stopped counting, Steve.
Yeah, we had 1 or 2 retire. 1 went to go practice in a different area. 1 decided she needed to take care of 2 little ones during COVID instead of working in the office. So it's been an interesting challenge. It's been a fun ride, but we're glad to have Chris and his team. We get the head honcho on the project. So what has been you've seen the project. You may not have been actively involved in the daily business, but we've got only take a couple minutes. Just what stood out about this project? Being some of the most simpler that you ever have to do.
Yeah, that's a good point, Steve. And hey, gang, I fully recognize it's the day after a 3-day holiday weekend. It's almost 5 o'clock. You're probably all chomping at the bit to get out of there. So we'll keep this really simple. If you know anything about football practice facilities, there's a simplicity to them. It's a football field that is covered, and it's essentially a barn that has to be tall enough that when you kick the ball, when you punt the ball, when you're practicing, it doesn't hit it. So you could stop there and just say it's going to be a barn, but the challenge for us is how do we detail it so it does feel like an elegant building within the shape that it is. As Steve mentioned, not only are we in a different football coach, we were on our 3rd football coach from when this started. Steve, it was 5.5 years ago.
Was.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of changes, and this is a building type that as the team goes, the project goes. So when the team is not playing well on the field, it is hard to fundraise. When the team is playing well on the field, it's easier to fundraise. So we've had some challenges with fundraising, but we're getting close to it. You know, there's something that both Carrie and Scott said that I think is really important, and that is, gang, when you graduate, when you get a job, get on site. You learn so much about how buildings go together when you're on site. You know, Evan also mentioned supply chain. We've been challenged with supply chain issues, and even in a meeting we had earlier today, our OAC call, we've got a generator coming. We don't know when, and the building's supposed to open here in a couple of months. Just been a real challenge. But ultimately, and I think Randy, you might have been talking during the video, so either what I'm going to say is in alignment with you and it shows that we're on the same page, or it's going to be contrary to what you said and it shows we're not on the same page. But ultimately, everybody, our role as an architect, as an engineer, as a contractor is really about conflict resolution. You know, Randy and his team, ultimately their goal is to build this project. Me and my team, it's to design and get the project built. That doesn't mean we look at the path to building it the same way or the path to designing it the same way. And Randy, I think you'll agree, every meeting we have, we don't agree. There's many things we don't agree on, but the important part is creating respect between architects and engineers, contractors, architects and contractors. And when you have that mutual respect for each other, then you will work together to find solutions to make the project happen, whether it's the design of it or the construction of it. And we've had so many challenges, so many iterations on this that I think it's that respect and collaboration that has and will prove this to be a successful project.
Yeah, Randy, what you want to
No,
add? to-
I echo what Chris said. I mean, you have to have empathy for your co-conspirators or whatever you wish. And just like these gentlemen said, supply chain, you know, everybody's been there, said that it's a problem, it's still a problem, it's gonna be a problem. We were fairly fortunate at one small level is that our project duration is much shorter than what these gentlemen are having to deal with. So we missed a lot of the direct COVID on this. Because, you know, we literally broke ground in fall last year. So we were starting to come out of this, you know, from that standpoint, where they were much more deeply immersed. It still impacts the supply chain, obviously, and like I said, we may never get a generator, who knows, but the simplicity of the building is, you know, we do have a fairly prescriptive issue is that, you know, since football was started in sometime in probably the late 1800s or something, you know, the field pretty much stayed the same. So we're fortunate with that. Unlike the wellness building and the Ginchap building, which are much more built around a much more abstract kind of feel and need, ours is highly prescriptive. You know, the average participant that walks in our building is bigger than me, you know, and so, you know, everything we put in there has to be pretty durable. So we don't get to embed a lot of true elegance in the classic stance into the building, but there's a lot of elegance in how we answer this. And this is what HOK's job has been, is that how do we take something that historically is deemed a little bit of a barn and still make it feel like it's an important building on campus, and that it serves the participants, but it also has to serve a lot of others. And you may have noticed the other day, Dr. Law, President Law, announced that she's going to do her inauguration in there. So, you know, that wasn't one of the original intents. I've known Rhea, President Law, for a long time, and I kidded her about going up on, there's a mezzanine. How many people have been in there? How many people have been inside the building?
Nobody here yet.
Okay, so that's an opportunity. There's like a little sort of mezzanine, you know, Romeo and Juliet balcony.
Yeah.
And I kidded her about doing sort of reenacting the scene from Evita as part of her, her inauguration. But it is, you know, it's gone through about 9 name changes too, right, Chris? I mean, it's been like 5 different acronyms at any given time. But
Yeah.
indoor performance facility for a reason is that it's meant to not be just football. And so from that standpoint, it's got to serve a lot of needs. And some of those are very far afield from from sport. This will be the largest available footprint, conditioned space on campus far and away. And so with that regard, it's untold what it may actually be. You know, you might have communications people when they're filming a movie at some point in time, or there could be drone racing in it. We don't know what's going to.
We've been asked to host recovery area for after a hurricane.
I could see that.
And, you know, I mean, it's big. There's no columns in it. And if you've ever been on Raymond James Field, and I've had 2 very senior people at the university tell me this in the last 2 weeks, is they're amazed how big it is inside. And I keep saying, well, it's the size of Raymond James's field, but Raymond James doesn't have a roof over it.
Yeah.
So when you have a football field that has a roof on it, volumetrically, it is rather imposing once you walk into it. On the tiny bit of elegance that you don't think about is that a lot of our stuff is much more coarse, if you will, some of the materials that we have to use compared to what these gentlemen's projects are. But the field, all the little letters and numbers and all that, they don't get painted on. They get stitched in. So, you know, it's not what people necessarily think. You know, they think, oh, it's just one green carpet and that's it. No, there is a lot more to it that goes into this, and it's the little things like that make it last. Those fields have a lifespan of probably 10, 12 years at best, and that carpet will come up and go away, and there'll be another one that goes back down. But I will assure you this, it's way better than UCF's. And that was priority number 1. I think it's better than FSU's. I think it's probably better than Florida's too. Now, Florida's
I don't
doing
know,
an 80
let's
million.
not get crazy.
I'm a Gator grad, so I mean, but I do believe that it's, from a pure field standpoint, I think it will be the best one currently in the state from that standpoint.
I will say the fact that we've got the translucent panels and Florida doesn't.
Right. We
makes
have
it-
natural light and they
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
We have,
It makes
and
a
that-
huge difference.
And that's one of the kind of unique things, if you go by there, there is an extraordinary amount of natural light going into this building. Most of these things are truly barns. They're dark, they're dungeons, they're not very appealing. And you know, if you're an athlete and you're working out in there, you know, that's not the most conducive atmosphere. If you go in and there's natural light, there is a euphoria of
Huge difference.
feeling like in a better space. Air quality is gonna be better. You know, I think we've got some unique, solutions for that. But the translucent panels that we have, I think really complement the building and you'll feel it when you go in there, how much more inviting it is with that look. I don't know if that
I
answers
know
your
we're
question or not.
3 minutes over. If anybody needs to leave, go ahead and leave. I don't know if there's a class in here after this.
20 people standing outside.
Yeah. I don't know.
Somebody's pounding on the door.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's been-
so how about any questions for the wellness? Not wellness,
Football.
football. And Randy, before you walked in, I did
You spilled the beans.
spill the beans.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Condolences to Evan. Congratulations to
You
you.
are pretty jacked up about it.
I bet you are.
I will tell you that my father was a ready-mix concrete, that Steve sure just didn't. My father was in the ready-mix business, and the very first yard of concrete on this campus in 1956 was by his company. So for us to go this long, to do this, to be a part of really what is going to be a game changer on campus for university, is huge to us, you know, but from, you know, just a personal standpoint. I grew up on this campus, even though I didn't go here. They did not have a building construction program. Florida did. I would have gone here if y'all had it, you know? They would have not let me in the architecture school. So, but to have a, good Lord, almost 70-year life experience with the university. My wife is a former foundation chair, so we're deeply immersed in the university and have been for years. I grew up in Temple Terrace, so you can't avoid the university if you grew up in Temple Terrace, you know?
Yeah.
I've been asked to leave the gymnasium
Yeah.
on many occasions when I was a kid, so.
So the little park over by Juniper Poplar with the pond is named Simmons Park. That's after Randy's dad. And yes, the first yard of concrete was in this building.
The first, the one totally stupid side story, and I apologize in advance for that. Special collections in the library. I don't have anybody.
Fourth
ever been
floor,
in Special
yeah.
collection. Special collections, the very first family documents in that collection were given by my family. And it was kind of an accident. My father was very enamored, having been a concrete provider, that he had this big chest of drawer with all this stuff in it that he'd known had been passed along to multiple generations. Had no idea what was on it. And so this was back in the 60s. They got some archivists to come over and collect it. So they grabbed all this stuff and off they went. And none of it said top secret on the outside, like that's a separate issue. But so they several months go by and they show back up with this accounting for all this stuff. And apparently in the bottom of the drawer were 2 land grants from the King of England. They were in the bottom of this drawer that y'all have that I had never seen before until recently. But they were to my family. I think we owned Missouri for a week or something. But they were land grants because of I guess it was like, I don't know, pre-revolutionary.
Wow.
One of the many escapades. But that's kind of neat to know that was in a bottom of a drawer of my dad's house. And that the university is taking good care of that now, so. So like I said, we go way back.
Yeah.
Wow,
Love it.
that's cool. Well, cool. Well, thank you guys. Thank you guys online. Thank you guys for coming out and visit. Any other questions, comments, requests?
We need people in construction.
One more?
Are there any spaces in that, indoor football field for just regular students, non-athletes, to just go and, you know, spend time there?
That's a really good question. Yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
that's it's badged in, badged out pretty much. I do think you're gonna find that there's not a lot of quote, public space in this building.
Yeah.
There's a little bit in the front of it. I do think that you're gonna find over time that there's gonna be a lot more student activities that occur in it as they get more comfortable with how the building can be used. It doesn't
No.
have any big parameters that says it can't, but that's, I think, they have to figure out, the university has to figure out how they're gonna really use the building.
Keep the UCF scouts out.
Yeah.
Look,
There's a reason we
That's
have,
part of the.
not, we have, there's a reason we don't have transparent glass in the front of it.
Yeah.
Thank you
All right.
guys for having us.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, all.
Irrigated thing.